Donald Trump made headlines on the Hugh Hewitt program, not for his usual political rhetoric, but for an alarming perspective on race and immigration. His comments suggest that the very genetics of migrants can be used to predict criminal behavior, a notion that smacks of eugenics and is steeped in dangerous historical precedents. Imagine a world where your worth as a human being is reduced to your DNA. Trump's rhetoric suggests just that, hinting at a belief that certain individuals, simply by virtue of their genetic makeup, are predisposed to violence and crime. He proclaims that the US harbors bad genes among immigrants, perpetuating the myth that immigrants, especially those seeking refuge in a new life, are somehow threats to our society. But the truth is far different. Research consistently shows that immigrants, both documented and undocumented, commit crimes at lower rates than those born in America. We need to confront the underlying message, a chilling echo of historical ideologies that have justified horrific acts in the name of racial purity. This isn't just a political stance, it's a slippery slope towards dehumanization and division. It raises critical questions about our society's values and the language we accept from our leaders. Join me as we explore the implications of Trump's comments, delve into the myths surrounding genetics and crime, and critically examine the parallels between today's rhetoric and the dark chapters of history that we must never forget. Together, we can uncover the truth and advocate for a more compassionate and informed approach to immigration and race. The dangerous implications of Donald Trump's claims regarding genetics and crime. When Trump asserts that you can determine someone's propensity for violence by examining their genes, he crosses a line into pseudoscience. This notion is not just scientifically inaccurate, it is a harmful ideology that perpetuates stereotypes and fuels discrimination. First, it's essential to highlight that there is no murder gene. The idea that certain individuals are inherently predisposed to violence is a gross oversimplification of human behavior. Research in behavioral science shows that criminality is influenced by a myriad of factors: social, economic, psychological, and environmental. Yes, biology can play a role in certain aggressive behaviors, but it is only a small piece of a much larger puzzle. A person's environment, upbringing, access to resources, and community dynamics significantly shape their choices and actions. Let's take a moment to set the record straight on immigrants. Contrary to Trump's assertions, immigrants do not commit crimes at higher rates than native-born citizens. In fact, studies indicate that immigrants, both documented and undocumented, are less likely to engage in criminal behavior than their American-born counterparts. This challenges the pervasive myths that portray immigrants as threats. By framing migrants as inherently dangerous, Trump not only distorts reality, but also perpetuates fear and division within our society. This narrative ties back to a dangerous historical precedent. The rhetoric surrounding genetics and crime has long been used to justify discrimination and violence against marginalized groups. Linking genetic predisposition to criminal behavior resonates with the ideologies of eugenics that have fueled horrific actions in the past, including forced sterilizations and even genocides. When we accept such dangerous rhetoric, we risk repeating the mistakes of history, turning a blind eye to the dignity and humanity of individuals based solely on their background. We unpack Trump's statements. We must remain vigilant and challenge these harmful ideas. Let's not forget the power of language and the impact it can have on societal perceptions and policies. Let's delve deeper into the historical context that underpins the rhetoric we've heard from Trump. His comments are not merely misguided, they echo a dangerous legacy of eugenics that has scarred our past. Eugenics, the belief in improving the human population through controlled breeding, gained traction in the early 20th century and was rooted in the idea of racial superiority. This pseudoscientific movement sought to identify and eliminate individuals deemed unfit based on arbitrary genetic criteria. The chilling reality is that eugenics was not confined to the pages of history books. It led to horrific outcomes, including forced sterilizations, inhumane experiments, and even genocide. The Nazis famously adopted these ideas, targeting groups that they deemed genetically inferior: Jews, Roma, and individuals with disabilities, justifying their extermination as a means of preserving racial purity. When Trump speaks of genetics determining who should be allowed into the United States, we cannot ignore the haunting parallels to these ideologies. Trump's rhetoric implies a justification for exclusion based on genetics, a concept that inherently dehumanizes dehumanizes individuals. It strips away the complexity of human identity, reducing people to mere genetic data points. This not only fosters an atmosphere of fear and mistrust, but also provides a convenient cover for discriminatory policies that aim to restrict immigration based on unfounded fears. The impact of such rhetoric extends beyond the political arena. It seeps into the fabric of society, influencing public perceptions and attitudes towards immigrants. When influential figures perpetuate the notion that certain groups carry bad genes, it legitimizes prejudice and fosters an environment where hate can thrive. It breeds division, creating an us versus them mentality that has no place in a just society. We must consider the long-term ramifications of accepting this line of thinking. If we allow discussions of genetics to dictate who belongs in our communities, we risk creating a society governed by fear and exclusion rather than one built on empathy and understanding. Human worth cannot be quantified by genetics. It is shaped by our actions, our character, and our ability to contribute positively to society. As we reflect on these issues, we must challenge the narratives that seek to divide us. Let's stand against the harmful ideologies that have caused pain in the past and advocate for a future rooted in compassion, inclusion, and respect for all individuals, regardless of their background. In light of all we've discussed, it's crucial to recognize the societal implications of Trump's rhetoric and the broader narrative surrounding race and genetics. His remarks do not exist in a vacuum. They reflect and amplify a troubling trend in contemporary politics where fear-mongering and scapegoating have become commonplace. By framing immigration through the lens of genetics, Trump attempts to tap into deep-seated fears that certain groups threaten our safety and societal values. This strategy distracts from the real issues at hand, such as systemic inequality, economic instability, and the need for comprehensive immigration reform. Trump's comments about genetics and crime serve to dehumanize immigrants. When people are reduced to their genetic makeup, it allows for the perpetuation of harmful stereotypes and narratives that portray them as less than human. This dehumanization can have serious consequences, as it fosters an environment where violence and discrimination become more acceptable. We've seen this play out in hate crimes and xenophobic acts that have surged in recent years. This isn't just a political issue, it's a matter of human rights. We must also address the impact of this rhetoric on policy. When leaders promote fear-based narratives, they influence legislation and public opinion in ways that can lead to unjust policies. The emphasis on genetic predispositions to crime can justify harsher immigration laws, increased surveillance of immigrant communities, and even violent crackdowns by law enforcement. These policies not only harm individuals, but also fracture communities, sowing distrust and division where there should be solidarity. So what can we do in response? First, we must educate ourselves and others about the realities of immigration and crime. Understanding the data that immigrants are less likely to commit crimes can help dismantle these harmful myths. Next, we should advocate for policies that promote inclusivity and support for immigrant communities rather than exclusion. It's imperative that we challenge rhetoric that dehumanizes and divides, calling for a more compassionate discourse. Let's foster conversations rooted in empathy, understanding, and respect for all individuals, regardless of their background. We can create a society that values diversity, champions human rights, and recognizes the inherent worth of every person. By rejecting divisive narratives and embracing a more inclusive perspective, we can build a brighter future for everyone. Donald Trump's comments about migrants and their bad genes are a troubling reminder of the persistent harmful ideologies that continue to influence our society. By reducing individuals to mere genetic statistics, we risk perpetuating division and hatred, echoing the dark chapters of history we must never forget. This narrative not only misrepresents immigrants, but also distracts from the real issues at hand. Issues like economic inequality and systemic injustice. The facts are undeniable. Immigrants contribute positively to our communities, and they are statistically less likely to commit crimes than native-born citizens. So why do we allow fear-based rhetoric to shape our perception of them? It's time to challenge these myths head-on. It's our responsibility to educate ourselves and those around us about the realities of immigration, to dismantle the harmful stereotypes that pervade our society, and to advocate for policies that reflect our shared humanity. I encourage you to share your thoughts on this topic in the comments below.